All right. Well, welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. That's Josh Bennett, co-host of the Utah Blockcast, helping out this season. It's been a lot of fun this year, dude. It's crazy. It's week 11, first season doing the show together. It's been a lot of fun. Already 11 weeks in, and man, it's really exciting. So appreciate you having been on here and having helped the podcast, man. You've been great.
Yeah, no, and it's been awesome. Got to meet a lot of cool people, say cool things, chop it up with cool people. You know, good experiences. It's fun to be involved and get a little closer to the program and help people kind of bridge that gap.
Dude, that's what's been so fun about doing the YouTube stuff now is like people actually like recognize your face when you're out and about. Like I would get that, pretty regularly prior to, but now it's like I'll be at Target and people will just be like, Bartle, love the show, dude. Like shouting from the other side of Target. I'm obviously there with my wife. Like it wasn't by choice. I didn't go to Target by choice of my own volition. So just, understand that. But no, like it's been really cool to meet a lot of people. The appreciation for what we've done, it means a lot. Like it's really honestly mind blowing that so many people listen and support what we do. And it's just really cool to meet everybody that listens. And so it's been one of the fun things this season is getting to meet, the people that support the Blockcast. So it's been a lot of fun, but enough of the sappy stuff. We've got football to talk about. No football, Utah football this weekend, but college football playoff debuted earlier this week on Tuesday, and Utah debuts in the ranking at number 13, which I think probably caught a lot of us by surprise. And
so.
Yeah, but when you break it down and you kind of dive into things, like Utah's, man, they've taken care of business and put themselves in a really great position in the final month of the season. So it's all about taking care of business. And so we'll talk about that. And then with it being the second bye week, we're also going to provide our updated grades, most of which are upgraded from the first bye week. And excited to dive into that. So pretty short show. This isn't going to be our typical Thursday show, just with it being the bye week. There's no need to go super long tonight. Just a quick little show, in and out in 30 minutes, and we're off and rocking, dude. So Bennett, man, let's start. Let's rewind it back to Tuesday. Set the scene for you. Where were you watching? What were you thinking as the reveal went on?
Yeah, I was at like a little Irish pub in New York City, and no volume or anything. I'm just sitting there, and we're waiting for a dinner reservation, and the rankings are coming out. I'm sitting with my boss. He's a big LSU guy. He went to Louisiana Tech, so I give him a hard time because he should be a big Louisiana Tech guy. But I digress. Anyway, figured somewhere Utah would land somewhere in that 15 to 17 range, like maybe as high as 14. Didn't really think that was possible. 17 comes and goes, 16 comes and goes, 15 comes and goes, and it's like, oh, wow, like, whoa, Utah's going to be ranked 14th. And my boss is like, what if Utah's not going to be ranked? And I'm like, no, there's no way. And then, like, 14th comes and goes and no Utah. And I'm just like, wait a second. Like, is Utah not going to be ranked? Like, 13 comes out. It's like, okay. Which, yeah, no, huge nod of respect. And it gives November football an entirely different meaning, a whole different way to root and watch and enjoy and all of that. So that was cool to start off night one in New York City. To see that number 13 come through felt good.
Yeah, pretty similar experience. Once you got to 14, the panic sort of hit where you're just like, oh boy, they're not going to do Utah that dirty, are they? And sure enough, no, they just had them ranked a little higher than we were anticipating. And I think, frankly, when you actually like dive into everything, obviously everybody has said it now. I swear there's a tweet from everybody now that talks about the metrics love Utah. And Utah's done a lot. Obviously, they've had some great performances. They've had some dominating performances this past month, and their only 2 losses have come against 2 top 10 teams, and I think that's really significant. But then you look at some of the wins that they have on their resume, and some of those wins that those programs have, and it's encouraging. So I think Utah is in a good spot, and they're going to need some help for sure down the stretch, but as long as they take care of business, they're going to be in a great spot. Like as long as they run the table like they need to finish the season, they're going to be in a pretty good spot. So want to hear from the chat as well. Already got some questions coming in. Ben, I'll get to yours because that's an important one, but yeah, send some questions, send your comments, your thoughts, and we'll make sure to highlight those throughout the show. So please feel free to comment, to post your questions. We'll run through a quick Q&A later in the show as well. So, but yeah, want to get everybody's thoughts on the CFP ranking, and I better spell ranking correct before I post the question. But all right, so Utah at 13. With the rest of the Big 12, obviously BYU at number 7, Texas Tech at number 8. What do you think that says about how the committee is currently viewing the Big 12? And is it obviously it's a nod of respect? I think we understand that. But how much faith do we have in the committee maintaining that level of respect moving forward?
Not a lot of faith until you see them do the right thing at some point in time. But no, they very firmly put the Big 12 in higher regard than the ACC, which is nice if you're a fan of a Big 12 team. They are also very heavy on like the SEC. You look at that stretch of things, but this opens the door for probably not 3, but there is a door for 3 teams to get there that would really need Notre Dame losing, but yes, most definitely 2. This is probably a 2-bid year for the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree. The fact that we're here November 4th and there's at least a path for 3 teams, right? It's very small. It's very, it's going to require a lot. You could say it's the Doctor Strange meme of just one path to getting 3 bids in. But honestly, if you look at Notre Dame's schedule and they're going to be heavily favored in all 4 of those remaining games, and we'll talk about some of those coming up here in a bit. But if Notre Dame drops another one, that certainly helps your chances. So like we've always been, this is a Notre Dame podcast, only this is now a Notre Dame hate podcast. So we're certainly going to be rooting against the Irish on the Big 12's behalf the rest of the way. So that'll certainly be interesting. But yeah, I think to sit here November 4th and to have a path for 3 bids for the Big 12, considering the conversation all offseason, is pretty significant. I agree with you. I think more than anything else, more likely than anything else, is you get 2 bids, right? I think I would be pretty surprised if if the Big 12 gets 3, but at least there's a path. And I think the Big 12, the committee gave a nod of respect to the Big 12 for what they've done this season. Also with the ACC sort of falling behind. The issue for Utah and BYU at Texas Tech is the opportunity to add some resume building wins here late in the season. Utah doesn't have a top 25 opponent in their final 3 games. Now maybe Baylor, Kansas State, or Kansas go on a run where they put themselves in that conversation at the tail end of the top 25. But that's sort of the issue that the Big 12 is running up against, is that there's just not a lot of opportunity for any of Tech, BYU, or Utah beyond this weekend, obviously, with the big showdown, to add another quality win to the resume. So, going to be rooting for chaos, obviously, and all that. But I think Utah's in a great spot at 13 for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight this too. Is got a comment, shows they are really valuing the metrics in which Utah is very high in. Worry about teams behind us passing us later on if we don't have any wins over teams currently in their ranking.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Yeah, that's going to be the thing. And for Utah, the only thing you can do is control what you can control, and you can control how dominant your effort is in each one of these games, right? And that's going to be the important thing for Utah, is to not only take care of business against these three remaining games, or these three remaining opponents, but to do so with, a pretty emphatic point of emphasis on the scoreboard as well, like to help their cause as much as they can. So, I think it's Utah's got to do all that they can to control what they can control, but you're going to be needing some help. And Paul Utah says best, like, has Notre Dame beaten anyone this year to deserve anything? And really, you look at the resume, it's a win over USC, and I think 6-7 straight wins now, after going 0-2, but they have the win over USC, but the rest of their resume, not that impressive, but they do have a top 25 win on their resume. So that's a tough thing. Like Utah does too. Well, obviously with Cincy falling out, like it was a number 17 win. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. I feel like Utah's got to be at, if Utah climbs to 9, they're going to be in the college football playoff. You get to 10, things could get a little bit funny still, just because like maybe an ACC team from the outside. Not 10. I think 10 would 10 actually lock it in, because if you're 11 or 12, you could get kicked out, right, for an ACC team or a G5 team. So 10 would lock it in.
10 is the goal. If you can get to 10, you're in a really, really good spot. Like, it would be shocking if you don't get an invite ranked 10th.
Then it just becomes what happens conference championship weekend.
Right. Yep. And again, you look at the 4 teams ahead of Utah, directly in front of Utah: Oklahoma at 12, Texas at 11, Notre Dame at 10. Notre Dame, they've got, let me pull it up here.
That Pitt game, big Pitt fans.
Yeah, big Pitt fans. Really they've got fans. Navy this weekend at home. They go on the road to Pittsburgh next week, at home against Syracuse, and then on the road against Stanford. So, again, not the most difficult slate, but, there's some potential there, right? Pat Narduzzi has had an upset in his career. Fran Brown at Syracuse has had some big upsets in his career already. So, we'll see. And maybe Andrew Luck and Frank Reich at Stanford and those guys, maybe they surprise and finish the season with the bang. Who knows? But that's what you're going to need, is Notre Dame dropping a game against that schedule, and it seems tough to count on that. Now with Texas, right? Texas at 11. They've still got Georgia this weekend, Arkansas at home next week, and then they finish up with Texas A&M. So obviously they have a great opportunity to potentially add a big win, but they also have they're at risk of dropping one. That Arkansas game, like if they lose that one, that's going to be pretty tough. Even if you add a win over Georgia or Texas A&M, if you drop that to Arkansas, it's going to be tough. Oklahoma at 12, they're on the road at Alabama this weekend. They return home for a showdown against Missouri, and then they finish up with LSU at home. And LSU is going to be interesting at that point of the season, right? Maybe they get a coach hired by that time, and the vibes start to turn around, but that's going to be the key game. If Oklahoma drops that one, like it's going to be tough for me to see them getting it. But I don't know. So those are the slates. Those are the schedules that the three teams in front of Utah have and remaining, and you're going to need some chaos amongst those schedules to get it done.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to underline is just the committee respects. There's a good nod of respect to Utah, the way Utah's winning, but then also that subjectivity that goes into these votes, right? Like Utah's kind of been that, been building into that brand. That's a year in, year out competitor, and this would, Utah gets in at 10-2 without playing in Arlington. That's a huge nod of respect to Kyle Whittingham and what he's built.
No, for sure. And I think that would be a great way for Kyle Whittingham to potentially end his career. And we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see on that. All right, so let's enough playoff talk. Obviously, a long way to go with that, and I think this weekend will provide us with a lot of clarity on not only the Big 12 title race, but the college playoff ranking as well moving forward. So this weekend will be fun, but let's dive into Utah football and the players, the position groups that have led to where Utah's at right now at 7-2 and ranked 13 in the country. Let's go through a position by position grade, updating our first bye week grades as well. But let's dive through this position by position group and just run through this real quick and get some comments, get some questions about these groups and then a Q&A to finish up. But let's start with the quarterback spot. After the last 4 weeks, how are you grading the quarterback position, Bennett?
Yeah, I'd give this group. I look back. I'm looking at what we gave our quarterbacks in our first position group breakdown in the first bye week. Gave them an A-. So I want to give the quarterbacks an A- again, but I feel like I'm still needing to see something from the throw game. So I'd go B+. Not complaining, not nitpicking, just need to see more on that throw side of things. And I totally understand that we might not see that for a long time because Utah's finding what it wants on the ground. And that's what this team will do week in, week out until somebody can stop it. So, B+. Hard to give it an A without seeing the ball move through the air.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I think B+ is the grade for the quarterback spot, and it's hard to be upset with the overall success of the offense, and that's due in large part to the dual threat production of that quarterback position, whether it be Devin Dampier or whether it be Bird Ficklin against Colorado, right? Bird Ficklin had such a great performance. He earned Offensive Player of the Week and Freshman of the Week, the first time that's been done in the Big 12 this season. Just a tremendous performance by him. And with Dampier, it's easy to take him for granted, and I think there's such an interesting conversation around Dampier where people dismiss him as a quarterback because he doesn't have the big arm, he's not making big throws deep down the field. But when you look at the overall success of the offense, he is the key cog to all of it, right? Like he is doing a lot for the offense to keep it on schedule, to keep possession of the ball, to sustain drives. You can go back to last season and watch some of these Utah football games with the offense and how much of a struggle it was to kind of reset and gain that perspective of how bad things can be when you don't have a good quarterback. And with Dampier, I think that can be taken for granted a little bit when we're starting to talk about, Dampier and what he means to this offense. But when you look at what he's done, he's number 26 in EPA in passing among all quarterbacks. He's number 7 in the country in EPA in rushing among all quarterbacks. He's accounted for 83 first downs through the air, 33 first downs on the ground, 15 touchdowns through the air, 5 on the ground himself. He's done a lot to help this offense sustain drives and put points on the board. And that was his message before the season even started. When he was asked if you had to summarize what this offense is going to do this season, he simply put it, and I'm paraphrasing, we're going to score points. And that's what they've done. They're among the top in the country in points per game, in yards per game, and it's due in large part to what Dampier has done at that quarterback spot. So, but at the same time, the games against BYU and Texas Tech still loom large, and I think it is fair to criticize some of the downfield production, but let's not dismiss what he is doing in a really effective manner. So I think B+ is fair, but certainly a lot of room for improvement at that quarterback spot. Let's get to the running backs. How did you grade the running backs over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think the running backs are really starting to settle in, and seeing Wayshawn run away with things a little bit. It feels like starting to see a little more that bell cow, if you will. If you look at what we had them graded going into the bye week, the first bye week, B-. I'd give them an A- here. I think they've been about as good as they can. There was the BYU game, didn't really get to run anything up the middle. Feels like Utah hasn't been running between the tackles as much, so you see Nikari getting less production. But Utah's been really strong at just attacking those edges, and that's more Wayshawn's game, and it's been fun to watch him kind of come into his own and get 2 games in a row passing that 100-yard mark. That's a big number for running backs to hit, and it's an important number. And seeing him get that twice in a row, it's good. Seeing him healthy, taking more reps, getting more touches is good. It feels like he's healthy into the more important stretch of the season. Then you got guys like Daniel Bray, coming in. Like that's been something that's come into the picture since we regrouped on this group last. And it's been a group that's been fun to watch grow, and they're very much as part a key to the success that this offense has been having.
Yeah, I think going back to our grades last time, a B- felt fair. It felt like they were getting the yardage they were supposed to get, but not creating a lot after that. I talked a lot about getting more juice for the squeeze, right? I said that repeatedly on the last bye week show when we graded things. And over the last 4 weeks, they have gotten more juice out of the squeeze in these last 4 games. So I think, Utah's really benefited from the emergence of Daniel Bray. You mentioned that Utah really struggled to run up the middle against BYU, but Bray was everything to the rushing attack, getting to the outside. His speed and ability to get to the edge was vital to that, and to have that presence in that room, I think is really big. And then with Wayshawn Parker, back-to-back games going over triple digits, and it seems like he's starting to hit his stride as a running back as we get into these final 3 games, which is really exciting. But getting back to the conversation around getting more juice from the squeezes, the first 5 games, Utah running backs only averaged 2.66 yards after contact in the first 5 games. Just not a lot of yards after contact. But over these last 4 games, that number's risen to 3.13 yards after contact. Now, it's not just they're getting a half yard more after contact per carry. It speaks to an increase in big gains after contact. And to this point, going back to the month of August and September, the first 5 games of the season, Utah was 4th in the Big 12 in rushes of at least 10 yards with 32 gains of at least 10 yards. In the month of October, in 4 games alone, that number was 32. So they hit the same number in 1 fewer game this past month, hitting that. And then not only that, runs of at least 20 yards. They did that 11 times this past month, these last 4 games. in the first 5 games, that number, they only got to 8. So they're getting more chunk yardage. They're getting more explosives in the run game as well. And I think that's a big part. And Wayshawn Parker has been big in that. Daniel Bray has been really big in that as well. And I think for me, that's been the biggest difference is they're getting more explosives. They're getting more yards after contact. And that's been the big difference for me. So I give this group an A-, a pretty big improvement from the last time we did this. And I think they've really started to capitalize and find a groove, with the running backs. So let's get to the big guys up front, the offensive line. Where are you at? What's your grade for the big hogs?
Yeah, it's hard to not like what you're seeing out of the running game, and a lot of that comes from the push that's generated up front by the big hogs, as you put them. So, going into the first bye week, we graded them out at a B plus. I would say they're still at that B plus level. Yeah. I think that Texas Tech game still kind of looms a little large. Like to see this unit go against another really good defensive front, and that's where I think you could give the group, get them into that A territory. But gotta love what you see. Especially when you get into some of those plays with the downfield blocking. You talk about some of those chunk plays with the running yards, like seeing Spencer Fano blocking at the 3rd level is a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, on the average play in and play out, they're leading the way to an offense that's getting nearly 500 yards week in, week out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this group is still a B plus and maximizing as much of a B plus type grade as they can get. It's just needing to see that against really elite competition, right? Those big games, the BYU game, wanted to see a little bit more push up front, up the middle, right? That sort of thing. Like that's the type of thing that we're waiting on for this group. But in terms of just the week in, week out against the rest of the schedule, they've been as dominant as any group in the country. But just needing to see that next level from this group, I think is what we're waiting on. But all of the numbers are still really, really, really good, right? Pass pro numbers, run blocking numbers. We can talk about line yards, which I love. We can talk about time to sack and all of that. They're doing all that they can to maximize what they're doing as big blockers. It's just needing to see that in a big game. Like that's where we're at with this group. So yeah, B plus. I think that's totally fair. Now this is going to be interesting. Wide receivers and tight ends. Would be curious to see if this has changed at all. I gave this group a B minus. What did you give this group?
Yeah, so we split them out, wide receivers and tight ends. So wide receivers we gave a B minus, and tight ends gave an A minus. If we're combining the two, I'd probably say B. But if we're just separating them out, wide receiver, I'd probably be B minus there, and for the tight ends, I'd probably go B plus. So yeah, I'd average them out at a B. On the wide receiver side of things, it's hard because you got a guy like Ryan Davis who I'd grade an A, but you need to have option 2 and option 3. And although it hasn't been something that's burned Utah for the most part this season, it's still just nice to have extra reliable targets. So hard to get higher than a B minus with only having one reliable go-to guy.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with this group. Is Ryan Davis is doing all that he can. He is top 5 in the Big 12 in a number of receiving categories. Number 2, only behind Jordan Tyson. If I had told you in the summer that Ryan Davis would be the number 2 receiver behind only Jordan Tyson in the Big 12, you would have laughed. You would have laughed in my face. You would have slapped me probably. You would have done all types of things, mocked me and said I was some crazy homer. But no, he's sitting here, number 2 in receptions, number 2 in yards. I think number 4 in yards per game. Like he is doing a lot, and he's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Utah. It's just they need somebody else to emerge, and there's been a couple of guys that have flashed at times. It's been J.J. Buchanan. It's been Larry Simmons. Last week, Creed Whittemore got into the end zone. I think a lot of people were really excited to see that. But who can sustain it, right? Who can emerge as that consistent threat? And talking about Dallin Bentley, he's been so fantastic this season, but he's dipped a little bit in terms of his production from the first part of the season, the first 5 games to the last 4. The production itself has slipped. I don't know that that's his fault per se. He's still giving tremendous effort as a blocker, and I hate to ding that group because of what he's doing there. And also, you got Semi Tawalongo, who's been a contributor there. Lander Barton's still playing there. But for me, just needing a little bit more consistency beyond Ryan Davis and that group will really help itself. And so hopefully you get into the bye week, you get Tobias, healed up a little bit more, get him some more rest. You get some more time to develop chemistry with some of these other guys. And maybe, over the final 3 games, we start to see that emerge. But for me, this group, receiver, tight end, B- as a whole, just because the production. And part of that, too, is the fact that the run game has been so effective that Utah hasn't really needed to throw the ball all that much.
That's what I was going to add. When you're winning by 4+ touchdowns, most of the time it's hard to throw it and let them back into the game or something, make mistakes or just whatever. So,
yep, for sure. All right, let's transition to the defensive side of the ball. What did you give the defensive line group?
That's, I'd say, all things considered, been the most impressive unit on the team for me, week in and week out. We gave this unit an A in the first bye week. I'm going to keep them with that A. Just bringing that pressure week in, week out. John Henry Daly getting to the quarterback as frequent and as often as he does. It's been the most consistent group, whether it's a base 4-man rush or the 4 of them are pushing and it's freeing somebody off the outside to get home. This unit's just been counted on. And got to note, too, that it's been pretty banged up at the defensive tackle spot, and you've watched those guys just rotate week in, week out. Don't know which 2 are going to be the ones that are going to take the brunt of it, but they take it. And proud of that defensive line unit.
Yeah, I'm with you there. An A for this group still. Jonah Leah and John Henry Daly, the told you not to worry about these guys all-star duo. Like, these guys are at the top of the list, the MVP of the told you not to worry about these guys list. These 2 have been phenomenal. And obviously John Henry Daly is 2nd in the Big 12, 5th in the country in 41 total pressures, is tied for 3rd in the country with 9.5 sacks. And he's been phenomenal. Jonah Leah is underappreciated in terms of what he's doing along the interior of the defensive line. He's been the most available. He's been the most consistent, and it's made a huge difference. All of the talk all offseason was about Dallas Vakalahi, and unfortunately, he's been injured. So it's not to knock him. Aliki Vamahi, a veteran, he was another guy that everybody was looking to count on. And then there was always just this Jonah Leah guy. Is he going to have the weight? Is he going to be at the weight he needs to be? And here we are, going into game 10 next week against Baylor. And Leah has 13 pressures on the season, matching the number generated by Junior Tafuna and Keanu Tanavasa from all of last season in just 9 games. He also has 14 run stops and is tied for the lead on the team with John Henry Daly in that regard as well. So he's doing a fantastic job, and I hope that people appreciate what he's doing, because he's not your prototypical defensive tackle who's 6'3", 310 pounds. He is a little bit lighter. He's a little bit more athletic, but he's done a lot to make an impact on that defensive line. So he's been really good, and I think, to your point, just the collective effort from the line across the board has been phenomenal. They've been the tone setters they've needed to be this season, and I think that's been huge. So A for the defensive line. Let's get to that second level group, the linebackers. What grade did you give Colton Swan's group?
Yeah, I'll give this group a B. Let's look back real quick. Had them as a B plus going into the first bye week when we first graded the group. I'll give them a B. Um, Not a knock by any means. Just feel like you get spoiled with a guy like Devin Lloyd, who's just everywhere.
Yeah.
And just absolutely nasty and vocal and that leader and all of that stuff that you want out of a guy that's playing in the center of your defense. I just feel like we don't have that, and I know that that's an unfair bar because Devin Lloyds don't just walk out on the football field every Saturday or Sunday at this point.
He was a 2-star athlete. They're everywhere. I was a 2-star athlete back in 2007.
Just miss Devin Lloyd. Special shout out to Devin Lloyd. Stevenson, Sylvester, just that it just need that dominance, and hopefully can see that. I think John O'Hall's getting really close, and
yes, I'm glad you said that.
It's not a knock to the room. They've been great. Don't get me wrong. I think the linebackers have been awesome and a really important piece of a really strong D. Just waiting for the next time I get to watch Devin Lloyd. That's really, I guess, what it comes down to.
Pretty special player, but yeah, I think Jonathan Hall has really done a lot to do his best. You go back to that Colorado game; he led the team with 9 pressures as a linebacker. Let's not forget that, right? 9 pressures, 2 sacks, forced the safety. He was that guy for Utah in that game. Trey Reynolds also filling in for Lander Barton in the first half, got himself a sack and a couple pressures. That game plan was so perfect and allowed the linebackers to just play on their toes and get after Caden Salter. That was a fun game. And the rest of the other 3 games, they've been solid. Still looking for, to your point, more of that playmaking, right? More of the ball hawking. What made Devin Lloyd so special, whether it be getting to the quarterback and getting sacks or creating turnovers. That's what I'm wanting to see from this group. Now, Levani Damuni's added the club, right? He's clubbed up now. He's got potential to now potentially, force some fumbles with some extra force, right? He picked up the fumble late in the game against Cincinnati, but I want to see him use that club effectively. That's what I want to see is Levani Damuni using that club to his advantage, right? Just start knocking dudes with the club. That's what I want to see. So, beyond just, Damuni using the club to his advantage, right? I hope that we continue to see these backers play with that aggressive mindset that they had against Colorado, right? Get after it, be nasty, and just be physical, be violent. That's what this group needs. And I think that game plan got that out of Jonathan Hall. And so I hope that he, among all the other linebackers, can really progress over these final 3 games. Because I agree. I think he's got sort of really special potential, and I think he can start to realize that over these final 3 games. He's already made great strides from where he was last year to where he is right now. Night and day difference, right? He is a truly converted linebacker. Now it's about taking those next steps and elevating to an elite level, and I hope that we start to see that over these final 3 games. So B+ for me at the linebacker position. Let's now get to the cornerbacks, because going back to the first bye week, this was the group that we were pretty hard on. This group was not impressive. So I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are on this group, Bennett.
Yeah, so we did B- for the quarter. This is a first bye week grade.
Yep.
B- for cornerbacks, C- for safeties.
Yeah.
If we're putting that whole back end of the defense into one grade, cornerbacks and safeties, I'd say at this point, I'm going to go B+, and I want to go A-, but tackling stops me from getting there.
Yeah.
B+ though, good grade. Top 10 pass defense in the country in terms of yards allowed per game. Has been beat on a couple long balls, but overall, the unit's been mostly nails. So B+, I think most improved unit overall on the roster, and will be interesting to see how they perform on on the other side of the bye week against Trigg and Sawyer Robertson and on the road and whatnot. Good test for against a nice air attack team.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that the tackling is what holds this group back. There are a couple really memorable moments over these last 4 games when it comes to tackling and amongst the defensive secondary members, and I think that's what hold this group back from a better grade. But in terms of coverage, these 2 groups, safety and cornerback, have made really impressive strides. So I'm going to ask you, Bennett, who do you think is currently limiting quarterbacks to the lowest QB rating when targeted?
So I think I know the answer to this one. Teo Johnson?
It is not Teo Johnson, actually. Blake Cotton. Blake Cotton. Teo Johnson. Okay, fair. Teo Johnson. Fair. I'm speaking more to the cornerback, but Teo Johnson, 2.8 rating when targeted that's absurd. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel real. It feels like one of those where he played one snap and like got a breakup and it's a 2.8 rate. That's insane. So okay, I'll give you that one. 2.8 for Teo Johnson. But Blake Cotton amongst all the cornerbacks, limiting opposing quarterbacks to a 49.3 rating in coverage when targeted. You go back to what he looked like the first 5 games of the season, just to kind of give you some perspective on, how far he's come. So in the first 5 games, he gave up 2 receptions on 3 targets against UCLA, 1 of 2 against Cal Poly, 2 of 2 against Wyoming, 2 of 4 against Texas Tech, and then 1 of 2 against West Virginia. So, a little over, about 60% reception when targeted. I think he finished up, let me do quick math here, 8 of 6, 8, 10, 13, 8 of 13 for receptions when targeted. So that was the first 5 games. Over the last 4 games, 1 of 6 allowed for receptions against Arizona State, 1 of 4 against BYU, 1 of 3 against Colorado, 3 of 10 against Cincinnati. That is phenomenal improvement from Blake Cotton pre and post, from before the bye week and after the bye week. He has really developed and emerged into what Utah thought they were getting in him. Just kind of that grizzled veteran that would always get back up, forget about the last play, and just move on and keep playing at a really high level. He's really taken to the coaching, really taken to the development, and I think his improvement reflects positively on the rest of the group, because the rest of the group has made similar strides as well.
Yeah, and guys like Blake Cotton coming over from UC Davis, I mean, that's important to just keep in mind when you think about this transfer portal era and Utah's ability to restock the cupboards and being able to take a guy from UC Davis like Blake Cotton and have him playing the way he is. You can always compete if you're able to evaluate and develop like that.
Yep,
no matter how much money you do or don't have.
For sure. And I think that's a really big thing. And, Utah, you look at that cornerback room, Donovan Saunders made a couple of really impressive plays against Cincinnati. He's depth. He still has another year. Then they have another kid in J.C. Hart that they're really excited about, really optimistic about. He's going to need an offseason to continue working on things. But this cornerback group is looking really promising for the future. So there's a lot of excitement. And again, just the development of this group. And to hit on the safeties, I don't want this to be just cornerback specific, but I think Jackson Benny's presence at safety, playing strong safety, which has allowed Teo Johnson to move back to center field and free safety a little bit more, has really kind of helped Teo, first and foremost, That's helped him, and it's benefited everybody else around them. I think Benny's presence at strong safety, the versatility that he has to play a little bit of free and a little bit of strong, a little bit of everything, has really helped Teo to not have to be that guy, and he can focus more on being that free safety, that center fielder, which is what he's been able to do over the last couple games, and has really kind of helped him get back on that upward trajectory in his own game. So, it's not just that the corners are improving, the safeties are improving as well. Just, again, the tackling. And it's not just Teo Johnson. It's Smith Snowden. It's Scooby. It's Blake. All of these guys need to improve as tacklers. And I think that's going to be the key, especially in these next 3 games, because you're going to face some passing attacks with Baylor. Jalen Daniels is going to throw the ball around. That's going to be key, is individual one-on-one tackling in those games. Obviously assuming if a pass is completed, first of all. All right, dude. Let's wrap it up. Special teams. Did we grade special teams last time? I can't remember if we did, but we need to.
I don't see special teams.
I don't think
graded.
we did. Yeah, I don't think we did. But I'll give this group a B. And I think there's some really encouraging things with each phase of special teams. Orion Phillips doing a great job. He's not punting a lot. I think he's like 15th in the Big 12 in punts, which is great. That's where you want to be. You want to be at the bottom of the conference. But I think he's had the 3rd most punts pinned inside the 20, even, with his few attempts. So that's been really impressive. And then Dylan Curtis, outside of his performance in Wyoming, where the wind was swirling, where he missed those 3 kicks, he's been really, really good. And you look at some of the numbers compared to some of the other kickers in the conference, 2 or 3 on kicks of at least 50 yards. He's tied for the lead in the Big 12 with, I think, 6 other kickers, from that distance. So there's some good things going on with the kicking as well. Obviously, the touchbacks, that being a consistent thing with his leg and just being able to boot the ball out of bounds, I think is something that every fan is fired up about. We don't want to see kick returns. Just boot it. You've talked about it a lot. And then, obviously, with special teams, Mana Carvalho and what he's been able to do. And it's been a roller coaster of a ride. It's been uneasy. There's been some white knuckle grip, type stuff at moments with him. But I think he's really found a groove as a punt returner. He is among the top punt returners in the country, averaging, I think, over 15 yards per return. And, outside of the muff punt against BYU, has just been really, really, I shouldn't say really consistent, because I think his first punt return was against West Virginia, where we were both at that game. And he did a leaping reception to haul it in. It's just like, oh, buddy, this is going to be a ride. But anyways, I think a B for special teams is pretty fair.
Yeah, I'll go B plus, mainly because Utah's kicking the ball out of the back of the end zone on all these touchdowns it's scoring and all these kickoffs it has. No, I think the return game's actually been pretty solid, aside from the couple mishaps, and then I think the kick coverage doesn't really exist because it doesn't need to, because we're kicking it out of the back. Utah's kicking it out of the back of the end zone. On punt coverage, not giving up the big play on punt returns to opponents. Field goals have been moving in the right direction. Maybe there's one game I would have liked to see more field goals kicked, and but what can you do? But no, I think B plus is where I'll put these guys.
Let's go ahead. Let's wrap this thing up. Put a bow on it. Get this posted tomorrow morning. Appreciate you, Bennett, for doing this. Appreciate everybody for hopping in, for tuning in, and supporting the Blockcast. It means a lot to us, and excited. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the bye week. Enjoy football. Stress-free football. It's fantastic. And we'll be back. We'll be back. I think Saturday night we're doing a space, Bennett. Saturday night, just kind of recap the action.
Yeah, no space tonight. Don't have a football game to talk about. Don't want to talk about tiebreaker scenarios and things like that. Yeah. Saturday night, when the games are over, that's a great time to do that. So, yeah, Saturday, come back together.
Sounds good, man. Saturday Night Space. Looking forward to it. We'll see y'all then.